it's going to come down right here, right now, to this moment.
I actually applaud the America's Cup organizers and the recent hosts of the America's Cup for making such dramatic changes to really capture people that otherwise may have never paid attention to the sport of sailing. I think it's been really good for the sport, and like I said, even I questioned it at first, but when I first saw a foiling boat and the speeds they're able to generate, I could understand the excitement. And when explaining to the traditional fan of sailing that questions these new changes, I had to go back to the history books and really understand that America in 1851, when she sailed up the Solent to sail the best of the British fleet, then the maritime superpower, was so radical in her design that I have to imagine the British probably looked at the Yacht America very much like we look at a carbon fiber foiling wing-sailed America's Cup boat today. It's unlike anything we've ever seen, but it's the future. And that's what the Cup's always been about. I think people sometimes get confused when they wonder why sailing in the America's Cup isn't in equal boats, like we see in some one design races, like a laser regatta or a J24 regatta, for example, where it comes down to only the skill of the sailor. But the America's Cup historically has always been a design contest, first and foremost. But at the end of the day, you know, the best sailors are always going to be attracted to the America's Cup, and it takes the best sailing team to harness the speed of the best yacht design. But the fastest boat has always won the America's Cup and probably always will.
The oldest trophy in international sport, the America's Cup. This is the start of a new chapter in one of America's greatest sporting stories.
This has got to be the most unbelievable race in America's Cup history. It's going to come down right here, right now, to this moment.
The most exciting moment for me on television, covering sailing, was in the 2007 America's Cup in Valencia, Spain. It came down to the last race, and there was a 1 second difference between Alinghi and Emirates Team New Zealand. But going into that final leg to the finish, Alinghi was so far ahead, and New Zealand, who was behind, had to spin a penalty turn as well before they got to the finish line. So it was completely over.
The America's Cup is on the line right here, and with one leg to the finish, no one knows who's going to win it. My goodness, New Zealand's hearts are in, their approach, their bow is crossing the line, and so is Alinghi. Who has won it? Who has won it?
And it was a bow-to-bow finish going across the line. The helicopter was out of position, our boat was out of position, the producers didn't know who won. Even the sailors, if you watch the footage, were raising their arms, and I was screaming, "Who has won the America's Cup?" We truly had no idea because it was bow to bow, and that call even made ESPN SportsCenter top 10. The next day I saw it, my call of me screaming about these two boats and wondering who won. But what's funny is, when you look at the footage, they're only going a couple knots. They don't look like they're moving. But for the sailing world, it was one of the most exciting moments to behold, and to be right there on the finish line watching it, wondering myself who won until Alinghi's flag finally went up. That was quite a special and spectacular moment in sailing. Does the America's Cup inspire people to start sailing? I would say in its current form, yes. It grabs non-sailors in a way that I think it never has before. It's always been exciting. The America's Cup's the pinnacle event in our sport, and even people who might not understand the nuances of racing a boat around a race course can understand the history behind the America's Cup. But in today's technology, the racing is so much faster, and the technology brings it to the television viewer and to the non-sailing audience in such an understandable way that I think it can't help but grow the sport. What I think the vast majority of people don't realize is that sailing can be very inexpensive and very accessible and very easy to do. The entire sport, all of us have a responsibility to make it more inclusive and more welcoming, and that's just simply a case of opening the doors and saying, "Hey, do you want to go sailing?"